Adjudicator from the University of Sydney, and my pronouns are he and they. I'm joined by a trainee today.
My name is Snigdha, and my
hi, Mukris. No preference.
Mahira.
Is that better?
Yes.
Dikshan, no preference.
I'm Jordan. I'm a born straight man.
How is he?
No preference. I'm Leroy Day.
Okay. I'd like to thank all speakers and invite the Prime Minister to speak to the motion that stands.
Yeah.
Sorry. One moment while we fix the technical things.
Earpiece. You just stick the earpiece inside a computer. You can't hear anything with it. How about that? I've got one in here. And masuk ni. Sorry guys. That's right. Problem solved.
Alright, let's do it.
Hello, medical professionals are restricted towards the medical profession when it comes to pharmaceuticals actually being in the market, but also to the consumers, where you rely largely on medical professionals to convince in a fiduciary position whether or not the person who is a patient to buy the medicine or the pharma at the end of the day. The methodology is pretty simple on 4 prongs. Firstly, we will have FDA saying before we can advertise and allow these companies to be able to say that a product should be in the market. You need to have proof that it is safe. You need to have clinical trials and a procedure that likely medicine is status quo anyway have to go through to ensure that there will be no side effects that are harmful to people at the end. Secondly, the consumers need to be able to access this data and scrutinize the data that these particular medicines have to go through and make a choice as to whether or not they want to buy the product. Thirdly, you have to be able to openly advertise what your product is, either on billboards, on TV, online, especially forum boards, what necessarily these medicines are, where you can make it comparative within websites that can also exist without needing an intermediary as the only medium for you to be able to market and sell your product. Lastly, you can have medical professionals backing up at this particular point if you want to look legitimate when it comes to your product. But we think that the system allows you to be called better if you have people who are not going to be doctors that have good qualification, or are going to advertise a product because they were bought over by pharma companies that had the money. This shares the people in 3 ways. Firstly, that should be an open market for pharmaceuticals to compete, where you can sell directly to your consumers and ensure that there's a free market. But secondly, do not constrict access of information to pharmaceuticals to only one part, and allow consumers to make that assessment at that particular point. But thirdly, if you only rely on medical practitioners, then the question is, there will be no will to create a forum, for example, or talk, or to make a comparison by the public. When they say, oh, it's up to the medical professionals, maybe we shouldn't do anything. 3 arguments in my speech. Firstly, why there'll be a free market, that's good. Secondly, why medical professionals are ineffective, the status quo is harmful. Thirdly, tells you what exactly the benefits are and what we will likely have to defend in this particular debate. So the first thing, why there'll be a free market, that's good. No, thank you. The first thing that happens is that when you have a board where you can advertise and people know what this website necessarily is, means that you circumvent the ability to only have an intermediary who's able to say to this patient medicine necessarily is. This creates 4 things. That firstly, you can choose the best medicine, for example, as you have a vast array of choices that are not limited to only being able to use a small number of doctors in your country, for example, to market your product. And this is especially problematic when particular versions of a product contravenes, for example, or you have, like, for example, Panadol takes over paracetamol, but at the same time, Euphamol also for the same thing, which are painkillers at the end. No, thank you. But this free market also causes exposure to a competitive market where you can cause innovation or prices to go down, especially in an industry where when there's a monopoly, therefore prices will be jacked at a particular point, especially when you can buy out these medical professionals who will be the person that markets to the patients what this product necessarily is. But thirdly, we think now we have less of a chance to buy out who these medical professionals are and having medical monopoly when it came to Martin Shkreli, for example. Obviously, it came to the point in which there was the only medicine that existed when it comes to AIDS. But in a point, for example, in a hypothetical situation, we're able to say that Panadol is the only product to buy at the end of the day. We don't think other smaller companies are able to compete with big pharmas that can buy out who these people necessarily are. But fourthly, that we can also weed out the ineffective ones where information can be compared in a company where it is openly said why one particular medicine or product is better than the other and have revisions over it that we can say that we can criticize and scrutinize and say, this product isn't good, I tried it on myself, and have a board in which people talk to each other. But here's a comparative as a second argument as to why status quo is likely going to be a position that is bad. No, thank you. Because the dynamic of a medical professional is one where there's this discussion of a trust and you do not have any choice when it comes to the only product that they offered you, and that's the only product that they can sell to you. Because at the same time, if only medical professionals have the license to be able to sell your product, that means that it's either slow, for example, where you rely on intermediaries to be able to give advice, but you also allow lobbying to happen where you can't penetrate the market anymore because you can buy out who necessarily these individuals are. But here's the biggest problem. Who your doctor necessarily is literally means what they will give it to you. So for example, if you have a doctor selling ineffective product, for example, within a small state like Alabama because he believes in supporting local industries, then you aren't able to buy any other form of these prescriptions of that particular drug because that's the only choice that your doctor gives to you, as opposed to being able to buy medicine when it comes to DTC, where you can access that information online, look into what is the best thing for the symptoms that you have at the point in which you were diagnosed by your doctor at a particular point, and buy medicine that could be cheaper, for example, because there's competition within the market, or could be more effective because other people are saying that this was more effective to me on that online board rather than rely on medical let me sell you one version of that particular product. We think you can convince more people that there will be better free markets of innovation, as well as allow smaller companies to be able to compete with big farmers, or disallow effective products from existing in the market because maybe your doctor bought a particular friend, or maybe he was bought over by some company, for example, to be able to lobby. Yes.
Doesn't your side only skew the market to big farmers that have a lot of money to advertise, as opposed to smaller farmers who have the efficiency in drugs?
I think it's status quo. It's a position in which you can only buy one single doctor that allow the message boards to be able to allow individuals to make assessments of what's best for them. But it's also not just about advertising. It's literally about who can you buy this medicine from at that particular point. If I can only buy from one medical professional who is only going to sell me one version of that product, you can't access a vast array of choices. Therefore, the monopoly can be jacked up when it comes to the price, or your doctor can scaremonger you and sell and advise you on what you don't necessarily need, which happens right now. Because if I usually position that you put in when it comes to the dynamic of talking to a doctor literally in front of you, where you trust them so much, could also mean in America, for example, where opioid craze went up and people necessarily buy medicine that they didn't need at a particular point, because you're able to scaremonger them in a fiduciary transmission to say this is not going to be good for you. There will be less innovation on your side of the house. Big pharmas can monopolize the market where there are only very little doctors to be able to penetrate to make sure that your product gets marketed, but also they can scaremonger these individuals by giving them only one choice that they should go for, instead of a message board where you can talk about what this medicine necessarily is. Options are amazing. That's why you should give one to the people.
I'd like to thank the Prime Minister for that speech. Welcome the operator Jordan to begin the case proposition.
Alright, I'm ready. Chris's entire case is predicated on the idea that individual patients who are in chronic pain, who are sick, who often don't see their condition from a purely objective point of view, are able to make better decisions, and doctors who have been trained, who have a better understanding of the human body, who basically know better what to do than the patients. I think that in this specific example, we're involving the human body and the anatomy. Lived experience simply no replacement or no substitute for actual technical knowledge. It's the first thing they're going to respond to. In more precise conception of the world, here's a comparison between individuals like in forums, comparing particular products, whereas on the other side, pharmaceutical companies speak to doctors individually. First mistake, we think that very often, when these medical companies market to medical professionals, there also exists similar forum within which these doctors are able to debate the specific benefits of given medications. Right? That serves as that already serves as being like area for these people to interact. Right? We think that the calculus that doctors have in comparison to individuals is that they're simply going to be a lot more able to decide what makes a good medicine and what makes a dodgy or fucked up medicine. Right? We think that at the point where individuals suffering from chronic pain, for example, they're a lot more likely to resort to medications that may not be good for them in the long term. Right? We think that now I'm going to talk about how advertising models necessarily going to work. We think that advertising is best designed, or what it generally tends to do with the biggest and most impressive medicines. Right? We think they're going to push for blockbuster drugs. We think that it doesn't make pecuniary, fiduciary sense for these individual companies to actually market like some specific form of antihistamine. We think we're going to market things like Xanax, things like Zoloft, buprenorphine, right? We think they're going to give you hard and heavy drugs. They make you feel better, stuff like morphine. They can kill the pain in the short run, or steroids. They build up toxicity in your body and market these things to patients as a quick cure, right? Because very often, at the point where these individuals people who are A, regular doctors, B, chronically ill, we think that very often they're going to resort to making choices that aren't necessarily good for them in the long run. We don't think all drugs are the same, right? We think that when we're talking about medicine specifically, there's notion of appropriateness, right? Drugs are better for a particular condition. We think that there's nuance to be taken into account for the individual specific condition and for the uniqueness of their particular body. And that's why I think going on a forum to discuss with other random people on the net what kind of drug would be best for like my cancer pain is a fucking stupid idea, right? We think they're fucking terrible. We think that like it's just very responsible to presume that these individuals are going to be able to make an educated decision on the basis of advertisement they saw on a billboard, right? Like, what do you think that billboard is going to contain? What kind of information do you think it's going to contain? As for this notion of cost and how cheap it's going to be, we think that regardless, like it's a wash out the side of the house because A, hospitals and like doctors are going to compete on the margins, right? They also want to buy cheaper drugs so that they make a better profit margin when they sell ready to the patient. And second of all, we think that these insurance companies already hold some form of monopoly, right? But we think in fact the converse is true, right? Because at the point where these pharmaceutical companies blow millions and billions of dollars putting up billboards instead of hiring people to research better medicine, right? We think that that's absolutely terrible. First of all, there's going to be less money that's actually given to proper research and development. But second of all, we think that the kind of drugs that they are therefore going to peddle are drugs that are designed to appeal to the consumer instead of medical professionals, right? We think that very often these medical companies are able to take like individual consumers for a walk, right? To sell them something might be good for them in the short term rather than long term. We think that in this case, right, the point where the individual is taking the drug, they're able to convince themselves that they're making the decision retrospectively. Right? Individuals have an unnerving tendency to try and make their own choice. But we think that in the case where it is a medical professional, where it's a doctor who's doling out these drugs, I think there are many checks and balances that exist that don't happen under their side. First of all, doctors tend to be a little altruistic, right? Work long shifts in the hospital, and they generally feel bad when they kill people or fuck them up. Right? Second of all, we think they're checked by things like medical malpractice, for example, what is appropriate practice, right? There are legal repercussions to doing that. But third of all, we think that doctors don't in a single case, right? If I'm a patient, I only have one life to take care of. But in the case where I'm handling multiple patients, having a track record of me doing badly and not causing my patient to recover is going to A, look horrible on my record, and like B, like cause me to just look bad in front of my peers, right? So we think that very often these doctors have stronger incentives to be responsible than the individual who is either unwilling or unable to do so for themselves. But the next talk about is how these consumers are going to react, right? Because at the point where we put the choice into the hands of the individual consumer, what kind of medicine do I want to take? Then you create a race to the bottom even amongst honest doctors. So how does this work, right? If I go to clinic A and they don't want to prescribe me like Xanax or morphine for me to feel good and like away from the pain for a while, then we think that what happens here is that I will go to the clinic that actually does give me the medicine I need, right? It creates market forces that compel individual doctors or like clinics or whatever to pander to individuals, right? I think that's something that's absolutely terrible because of all the calculus analysis that I just gave you. Take a few words.
On your side, a doctor may only offer an expensive or ineffective product to the patient because they were paid by the pharma companies to market it. That's the only option they can take. How is this good?
So I think I already preempted a lot of these things. If he fucks out a patient, he looks bad, A. B, like he doesn't want to, and like C, the doctor has a choice of multiple pharma companies. So I think that even in the case where you want to have doctors actually endorse these things, that creates a terrible moral hazard as well, because now doctors have a great interest in like, what do you call that? In endorsing these products and they don't know whether they're good or whether they're bad. I think that this sort of like perverse incentive poisons the market, right? Because it creates an illusion of credibility where none really exists. Right? I think that at that point, the individuals are being like coerced or deceived into buying medicines that might not necessarily be good for them given their compromised state of mind. We think that that's something that's really, really bad, right? So what is like, even like from a principle perspective, right? We talk about this idea of choice. Very often as a state, we protect individuals from making choice that could affect them in the long run. When they have a compromised state of mind, or when the product they're consuming is something that's bad for them, right? So we have regulations, for example, on things like abortion, on drugs, right? We do to an extent check the bodily autonomy of individuals insofar as the state is able to ascertain that these things are not going to be good for them in the long run. We think that this is essentially no different, right? Because at the point where we have got patients taking more of these drugs, taking stronger drugs, ignoring like the doctor-driven model of medicine where people who are explicitly trained to do this like are actually taking care of you. We think that this results in the worsening of the very same opiate crisis that Mukri is talking about. I think that very often this opiate crisis, all of these drugs enter the market through like these pill mill clinics, right, where the doctors just dole out like whatever drugs. Very often these drugs are also drugs that are very well known. They have a brand name, right? Xanax, Zoloft, Viagra. These are the sort of things that come up in the black market for. These are the things LG clinics tend to prescribe. And the point where we get the impression, where we start dealing with individuals that you the doctors, you should be the one being able to take care of your own body. You pick whatever medicine you want. Then we think that we open up these individuals and make them vulnerable to being exploited by the same medical companies who have a vested incentive to sell them more drugs, stronger drugs, but not necessarily better drugs. So, Mr. Speaker, listen to your doctor. You're not a doctor. Just take what he gives you at that time.
I'd like to thank the opposition. Welcome the GPM
Yes.
to continue.
The fundamental problem came from Jordan's speech. He faked the characterization in the case coming from our side of the house, because realize under their side of the house, they said they want things such as like under their side of the house, you have to rely on things like others. From Muker's speech, we said those kind of incentive structure exist. However, we said that this kind of advertising is an option should be open to the public on the ground. So by that word, all of the benefit coming from Jordan's speech can be co-opted on our side of the house. So done with my personal. Secondly, let's talk about which side can consumers make actual and reasonable decision, because this is the main contention into linking to the benefit both sides want. So on our side, we want open advertising to consumers on the ground. We want this advertising, and doctors will relay that form of intent to the what happens on the our side. People are likely to buy products that are only like through advertising. But we say that firstly, it can still be a reasonable decision because consumers stop short at purchasing if it means that it hurts your pockets, if it means that it strips off your money for it. Secondly, people are much more informed. Globalization, they will buy things with what they need because information are out, like Mukers has posited in his things like forums where people can make that comparison and comparative. What's the comparative under side of the house? So the relay information to doctors. That firstly, the advertising of medical practitioners consumers are not like the communication is one that is not dynamic, one that's skewed. The fiduciary relationship that exists. Because firstly, people are more likely to believe your medical practice, even though it's from untrue thing that they probably need. For instance, in America, that's why the opioid crisis is one that's very harmful, because medical clinicians also need money to feed themselves. Therefore, they're more likely to brand all of these prescription to people, even though these consumers don't even need it. It's under our side of the house, that form under your side of the house, that undue influence exists, and under our side of the house, consumers can make that reasonable decisions through active information that they see from the form of undue influence, the rational and decision making into believing doctors, and we think that it's one that we regret under our side. Second, why advertisement is actually good. This came from Mukherjee's speech, which Jordan also didn't engage. Because for our side of the house, we create options not only to medical purpose, but also people underground. But this is good. Firstly, at the point where all of the pharmaceutical companies now advertise all of their drugs, it means that firstly, create competition. Why is this something that's good? Because right from closing opposition, they see it that now there's a monopoly in by big pharmas, probably GlaxoSmithKline or Pfizer. But under our side of the house, we break that form of monopoly at the point where now each pharmaceutical company will advertise as to why their drug is one that best. Because in school, there's already a dominance by these pharmaceutical companies to buy out each medical practitioners, and this medical practitioners also believe them because of the perception that they have already established. Under our side of the house, we get more pharmaceutical companies to create drugs that are and have that form of competition, because now you will want to create the best drugs for the cheapest of price. So we cater the consumers under our side of the house. But what is the comparative under their side of the house? We said now all of the monopolies are much more entrenched, and where you don't have that form of advertising because people only build the doctors. Now it's weird. She said there will be black market under our house. He said it is more likely to happen under your house. Why? Because he didn't even link as to why black market suddenly exists. We said it's more under your side, how people can't get access to this form of drugs and prescriptions because medical physicians can only give them under your side of the house. Black market is probably more rife under your side. We said at least under our side of the house, at the point where now there's advertising and people are commercializing these drugs, people are more likely to access a safer products, and we've explained our model. Third thing, how we weed out doctors who are ineffective and do not act on all true manner. Because in Jordan's speech said that doctors need to be autistic anyway. They understand that this process of motives. However, in status quo, the harm is much likely under your side of the house, because that if it can be called under your side of the house, doctors probably poor to feed their families. Now we make that form of advertisement to his patients in order to buy his drugs, for instance, and rely on their credibility to sell those products. We said that so therefore we weed out doctors who are bought by these pharmaceutical companies. But secondly, we also weed out doctors who are ineffective because they don't want to support certain pharmaceutical companies because of ideology. Meaning that they don't want to sell certain products because they just don't believe in selling abortion therapy prescription drugs, for instance. It means that under our side of the house, we create accessibility to more people under our side of the house. Fifthly, before I move on to my fifth substantive, any of you closing. Perfect.
Don't you think that at the point where these advertising companies have a billboard or something, incomplete information to people who are suffering, doesn't that represent undue influence?
Okay, look, advertising exists under our side, but realize this is not exclusive to all pharmaceutical companies. What does this mean? All pharmaceutical companies need to complete each other, tell the most honest and true information why their drugs is the best one. Under your side of the house, you conceal that form of information to medical practitioners, or consumers and patients don't know about it. So lastly, dominance of pharmaceutical company and monopoly, because this is a contention coming from the closing position. Realize that this exists under both sides of the house. So in one side can break this form of dominance. We see it unlikely under our side of the house, the point where we options to people under. Why is this true? It's the first pharmaceutical company now will meet the demands of the people into what form best kind of drugs to keep people underground. We said that at least that form of dominance can be broken down at the point where we have equal and fair competition towards the form never been prouder to oppose.
Let's take the deputy minister for that speech. Welcome the operator Hari to conclude the health.
We agree.
Mr. Speaker, we think that technical intermediaries like doctors exist for that reason is because when that choice of what medication to take is left, prescriptive medications to take is left to the consumer makes a false choice. That means I'll talk about why this consumption is a inherently coercive choice, why the consumer choice is inherently coercive one. But before that, we need to ground this debate. Let's talk about what kind of advertising this is, what kind of consumers we're talking about, right? We're not talking about the people with like orphan diseases like Crohn's or AIDS. Those are the people who like to research extensively about the condition that they have, because those are chronic conditions that affect affect them in the long run, right? Those are the people who look at your data sheets and all that. But this is not about people primarily. You know why? Because those people's drugs are already controlled by a monopoly of pharmaceutical companies. Because most pharmaceutical companies realize that there is no profit to be made from capitalizing on these small niche markets instead of big blockbuster drugs that deal with broad-based symptoms. That means your Xanax, your Panadol, all this crap. Right? So it's not going to be those this intense information and then making great choices based on that information. It's going to be people who are looking for broad-based drugs. That's important because it means that when we talk about what kind of advertising comes into play, right? We're talking about we're not talking about fact sheets, okay? We're talking about impressionistic advertisements that appeal to that person's sense of well-being in that moment. This is why, for example, even when you're making when you're making choices about really important things, like for example your housing choice or your healthcare, your pension fund choice, or stuff like, for example, your education choice in terms of which university you want to go, all things that have long-term ramifications for you and important to your future, you don't make them based on impressionistic advertisements, lot of imperfect information as to why they make these choices. Now you have to bear in mind the grief that a person who's going through an acute condition is suffering. That person wants nothing more to relieve that ailment. This is talk about the kind of drugs and why they're selectively given. Let's examine the idea of corticosteroids. Right? Corticosteroids are excellent symptomatic drugs, right? They solve whatever fucking problem you have. The problem, the reason why that shit in the long run, they screw your body over thoroughly. This is why most GPs do not prescribe corticosteroids. If, however, there was an impressionistic advertising that focused on how good that thing will make you feel, and then were to put in asterisks like small at the end of your TV, that this may lead to liver cancer, maybe some small group of people, I think most people will not look at that main problem with the drug. There is also the legitimacy that these drugs are being funneled through airwaves, right? That they have TV time, that they are glamorous, they look legitimate. People make decisions based on those stupid covers instead of the actual medical problems that these drugs can present to them. This means to say that their choice is simply not as valid as the doctor's choice. Now we have to examine what kind of choices do doctors make, right? We came up with this strange analysis. He told us doctors will give ineffective drugs. Why? Why the fuck would they do that? If they do that, they lose customers, right? You're giving bad drugs. People go to other doctors, will come back to you. They say your drugs don't. You know what doctors are more likely to do? Doctors are more likely to prescribe drugs that work symptomatically fast, right? But here, there's an except. That means the only time when doctors are ineffective are when they're giving drugs that work better in the long run, are not not as effective or not as fast working in the short run. That is a valid and good medical choice that these doctors are making at the cost of their profit margins. Pharmaceutical companies have reason to make that choice. There is still an intermediary here, Mr. Speaker. You are not going through open access. The intermediary does shifts a doctor who could be well-meaning, and the only ineffective choice that the doctor will make is to take a hit to his profit margin so that you are better in the long run, as opposed to the pharmaceutical company serving as an intermediary who only cares about their profit margins and therefore only has a reason to push the most so-called effective, fast-working drugs at the cost of long-term health. Because the people who will suffer those side effects may be minority, number one, and number two, those side effects often drastically happen many years later, meaning that there's to link it to sales now. That's why pharmaceutical companies get away with doing this shit already, but it gets a lot worse on in this case, right? Because you take away that intermediary of the doctor who's likely to make that medical decision on your part, right?
Right.
Go.
Yeah, pharmaceutical companies are entities which cost billions of dollars.
Yes.
Why would safety net through like doctors hire as opposed to pharmaceutical company who also have to
Yes, precisely. They cost billions of dollars. They want to make lots of profit, so they don't care about the small group of people who may or may not file a class action lawsuit that they are then predisposed to fight against because they have millions of dollars. So I have great lawyers to fuck you, right? That means to say that these people are not going to make decisions based on your long well-being. They make their calculus based on how much drugs you will buy currently to solve solve like the acute problem of your flu, for example, or your inflammation or whatever, right? That means they don't have that altruist need in them to care to a certain degree. Also, why then are doctors better equipped to deal with this? Mahira told us that doctors are maybe poorly want to look after their families. They don't suffer from that problem. They don't pay very well. The reason why states, even their public doctors, pay them very well is because they want to prevent them from making these very decisions to begin with. But this means that they take a less of a hit they want to think when they actually make these ineffective decisions. Also bear in mind that the only person currently who makes those ineffective decisions for you is that doctor, because they care about your medical well-being and are able to interpret that for you. Then into the last point. How does this development of medication or 4-6 closing or anything? Okay.
Yeah, if you have different pharmaceutical companies, and one pharmaceutical company like screws up, like there's always an incentive for people to make their products better. What is the incentive under your side of the house?
They don't screw up. According to the consumer's eyes, they're not screwing up because the majority of consumers think they get what they want because they get acting medication. The problem is that it's a lot more harmful in the long run. These are not things that are tied back to those medical companies, meaning that they are not affecting the profit margins of those companies, which is what companies are based on if you have competition. But moving into the last point, right? This idea of development of medication in the long run. We think that the development of medication in the long run to appeal to consumers is going to be focused on marketing instead. That means they're going to develop the most sensationalist drugs that work most aligned with this advertising. That's because there's limited decisions for what drugs they want to sell as opposed to consumers aren't looking for impressionistic, like fast-working drugs, but instead they best working in the long run, right? They're more likely to look at the technical aspects of the drug, how well it works. This means that in order to appeal to them, pharmaceutical companies have an incentive to look at R&D, to pump more money into R&D so that the drugs are actually actively better, because doctors are able to discern that as opposed to consumers who are relying on that kind of advertisement. This means to say that marketing then effectively will displace R&D in your world, meaning that drugs are less effective in the long run as well. For all these reasons, because this choice is more valid,
At the operate that page, welcome the government member side to begin with.
We must no longer allow Big Pharma to write the branding of professionalism in order to deprive millions of vulnerable people from access to affordable medicine. Understand that most prescriptive drugs in this debate are not cheap. They are drugs that deal with serious illnesses. We're not just talking about fever, we're not just talking about flu. We're talking about things like hypertension, like diabetes, and things like that which require drugs that doctors give to you. Fundamentally then, we think insofar as people aren't able to actually have competition, to access to competition over this kind of things, there is no incentive from opening opposition on how is any ways that price can be on their side and make things more accessible. Something OG was very explicit about. The problem in the opening was in law. Whether informed accessible choices to read to allow prescription to openly advertise. OG's policy already prevents the consumption of subpar drugs. Therefore, this was a case of pushing for competition and making drugs more accessible. They said, but didn't complete on how innovation better happens on our side, and I'll prove in my extension itself. OO's response was rather strange. He tells us the drugs of improperly the harms of improperly informed decisions by consumers may be serious because we get the wrong drugs and things like that. I think first of all, OG's policy already filters out bad drugs. And secondly, we think abuses are like we're talking about prescription drugs here. We're not talking about off-the-counter drugs. So we think OO's case is rather clear in that sense. He don't respond to the point of accessibility as well, right? Except they did mention that doctors have an incentive to actually lower price, but we were unclear how they actually manifest reality this means possible for people. We think the response was simply that big prevents that. Yeah, no analysis on that. That was the that I'm going to break in my speech. Now, two arguments. One, in principle, why it is an injustice to deny open advertisements of prescription drugs to all people in society. And secondly, on why innovation is better on our side and how we change the trajectory of competition to not just be about price, but about quality. Now, first of all, recognize the debate is not just about any drugs here, right? We're talking about prescriptive ones. Often, it means that people who need such healthcare tend to have illnesses that are very serious, and they're more vulnerable than most other people in society. This is compounded when drugs like cancer, for example, are extremely expensive in current status quo. The monopoly of such kind of drugs by only big pharma makes it such that extensive state subsidies are needed to remain affordable, and in most of the poor countries, alternatives have to be provided instead of the proper kind of drugs for such kind of people, right? Also say that people make decisions the moment they have access to the kind of information. We weren't really sure why, but we think that even if advertising was very attractive, poor people will still be more cost effective in the way they pick their drugs, right? Fundamentally, then they'll still get the kind of drugs that they need at a much lower cost. They have to tell us why depriving that kind of option people is something that is justified on their side. When don't allow competition, there's no incentive for any company to actually make the drugs more affordable or cheaper, right? Much rarely happens in status quo. Insofar then, as states don't, insofar as the state doesn't allow for this kind of information to be out to the public, this directly assaults on its most vulnerable population that cannot afford what they need to sustain their lives. Letting entire families suffer being unable to afford such kind of drugs, etc., etc. The question now becomes, how do we then lower the prices on our side? And that will be my second argument, but before that, yes, Jordan.
So, I want to know, if these drugs are already hidden behind a prescription barrier, how does pumping the prices necessarily? We know from market strategy that these prices are already available, but it's still expensive.
It's not just publishing the prices, is that when people know there are more options, companies will have an incentive to want to remain competitive. What that then means is that prices will more likely be lower as a result of that, right? Competitive pricing, basic economics. Now, second argument, innovation. Why innovation is better on our side? As status quo, what the competition looks like is that drugs are extremely cheap to produce. Most drugs use per unit. When we continue to allow big pharma to more thing, affordability will not reach the state, and weak states won't have the ability to fight against them. CO must deal with this directly, since OO did not. But secondly, we think we change the trajectory of competition. Why? Because when big pharma can no longer monopolize such kind of markets, the only way they can remain competitive is to research and develop more, better, and effective drugs. What that then means is that we actually allow innovation to happen so much better on our side, because now, in order to stand out above the other companies, more money will pump into those kind of things, not just advertising, right? And even if advertising happens, what it means is that advertising will be targeted in the direction of why this drug is actually better and more effective for you, and therefore more cost effective. That is how innovation very likely happens on our side. No, thank you. The comparative in this debate, Mr. Chair, is on their side, they don't allow for innovation to really happen. They hinted on this kind of thing, so they didn't really expect. But secondly, they don't allow accessibility to companies to rely on state subsidies. They deny people the autonomy to choose the kind of drugs they actually need, right? But thirdly, what opposition does to the poor people is directly assault those kind of people and fail the state duty. Yes.
In the status quo, pharmaceutical companies develop drugs that best appeal to doctors who care about their patients. On your side, even if these drugs are dirt cheap, they also are fucking fat rats. So what's the point of hitting people with all these terrible medicine?
Okay, when companies want to appeal to doctors, we don't think doctors actually think about what kind of drugs what are cheapest for their patients. What they think about is what kind of brands are most trusted. And most often, these kind of brands tend to be the monopolies themselves. But if we're talking about prescription and FDA tags, we think the composition of those drugs will be the same anyway. But more importantly, we recognize that partnerships exist in status quo. That is to say, public health hospitals, for example, have partnerships directly with such companies in order for them to actually have innovation and that they rely on hospitals to do research on those kind of things. What we do on our side is that we give more consumer push for more companies to go into those kind of hospitals and do research, right? What that means is that we have a reduction of the better drugs at lower cost, right? That is again of our point at closing government. Now, on a comparison, given that we understand the harms that hasn't been dealt with side opposition, what we provide in government is the incentive for companies to want to innovate the right way, to want to be competitive in the right way in order to lower the cost and improve the quality of our drugs and find the drugs and better solutions to problems. But secondly, we fulfill the duty of the state to actually provide accessibility for its most vulnerable populations, these kind of things. We think in utilitarian metric, we still save more people than they do, right? Especially so if you're talking about poorer countries, you're talking about developing states. Mr. Chair, again, do not let get away. I think Big Pharma abuse swaths and swaths of population that cannot afford what they need to stay alive. Do not let them get away with murder. Do not let them get away with accessibility from people.
I'd like to thank the government member for that speech. Welcome the position member Leroy to give his position.
I'm sorry. Thank you. We that the debate thus far lacks the mechanistic things to prove why a drug will be more or less accessible of this policy or without this policy, or to why a drug will be more effective with or without this policy. I mean, for CEO will be the first to prove to you that mechanistic links that make all the outcomes possible. Our case will be directly antithetical to CG. Every rebuttal of them will be implied in my speech. But before that, let me engage OG. OG lost when the case is contingent on doctors being mala fide. I think we've already proven why they are not, right? It's because they are already a very packed industry. There are a lot of doctors everywhere. They will want to be effective in order to sell their services. That's why if you fly to Switzerland to get an organ transplant and not do it in Malaysia, first people care about whether you can treat them at a cost-efficient cost or not. But secondly, as I said, consumers need to be able to scrutinize information regarding the product. Oh, didn't deal with this. But we'll tell you, this information are already available at the moment where you file for the patent for your drug. Because this is correct. When you got a patent and you want government to protect your patent, you have to disclose all information, government, make it publicly accessible, so academicians and government and your auditors can access it to the public as well. Right? We say if they want experts to scrutinize, you can already get this information, sit in the laboratory, sit in your closed rooms and discuss about those drugs. But rational scrutiny don't happen under their side. Why? Because you rely on marketing. Have you seen marketing? Who are you marketing to? And this is specifically from CEO as well. You're marketing people who don't believe in climate change. You're people who believe in anti-vaccines, right? They believe one debunked economic paper from decades ago to show why vaccines are harmful. We think the type of marketing that happen under the side will not be the cold calculated dissection that they want, but in fact it's still a scale tactics and CGI. But secondly, the sex doctors are mala fide. Okay, we say they have natural incentive why they won't do so. But then coming from OG, they said, oh, but there are kickbacks and there are other violations. But we'll tell you, if to the extent that those things are true, we think the response is regulation instead of giving more misinformation to the public. What form of regulation are okay for? We're okay with more rigorous audits. We're okay with checking their bank account, checking the statements and money that they come in. We're okay with checking the speaking arrangements, whether they're getting any big speaking arrangements for big pharmaceutical companies. We're okay to force them to submit written justification to the medical board as to why the custom medicine to see whether they really do have good justifications or not. But we need to do all things that we think will ensure better regulation by the doctors themselves instead of fooling the consumers. But third, lastly, there's that, and this is also echoed by CG, right? You know, somehow drive down drug prices when they compete. Drugs are not like phones, it's interchangeable, it doesn't matter if you bring one or another. We say drugs are most important and they compete in form of effectiveness of whether they can cure a certain disease or not. Which is why we think there's already a natural trend of consumers trying to find the most effective drugs or they're trying to find a more drug, right? But to the extent that they want to prove like the cost of what we tell you that won't be possible. Why? This moves to my point. Why is it for this policy ensuring less affordability, less accessibility, and less ability for new, more effective drugs to enter the market, right? We put you status quo is fine. The doctors already have inherent incentive that if one of the day we have ways to regulate it. But secondly, we also tell you this will actually drive up the price of drugs. The barrier of entry is accessible. Why? I'm not sure if you noticed, but marketing is immensely expensive. And this is the analysis coming out of missing for OO, right? You need, number one, staff all over the country with physical officers in every single state. You need to buy large billboards, giant posters on every single highway. You need to hire celebrities and like Angelina Jolie, Selena Gomez. You say, this drug cured my AIDS, I don't know. And you have to have giant posters on highways. You have to have people who do CGI, like making dragons fly around, and some of the medicines will destroy the dragon in your stuff. You have to need to have prime time air spaces, probably competing with some of the most competitive spots out there, right? You have to buy time air spaces, radio space, they amount to millions of dollars. So in US, 50% of a pharmaceutical company's expenses come directly from marketing itself, which is why it's so high compared to other countries in Europe. But what's the problem here? Your market is niche. Not everyone gets AIDS all the time, right? You get, whatever. You can only sell like what, 100 to 200 medication. It means that all your operating expenses, Coca-Cola will push it to millions of dollars. You push it to the few consumers who need your drug to survive. What does this mean? It means that you're pushing all these costs of advertising, celebrities, and all to those individuals who need those drugs to live. And a lot of them will not be able to afford those drugs and therefore die. I move on. Yes. Close it.
Like bad consumer choices affects only those who already afford. Those who won't care so much about that as they find the lowest price, the same competition of drugs. How can you make you poor people now more able to access drugs?
Generic drug providers who don't have the largest to buy all your marketing slots. I will tell you, more often than not, your generic drugs providers are not going to be able to market all those things, but they'll be phased out, and people will only, like, the extent that the knowledge you know is only based on your observation. When every single time you turn on the TV, it's only those name-brand drugs that are left to go for those companies that don't have the money to market those drugs, right? But so what are the harms, right? We tell you, marketing is a war of resources, not a war of effectiveness. You shift the war of effectiveness right now among medical practitioners to the war of perception, right? It means that you're money to buy more prime time slots. People are more aware of you. You have more to fund bogus experimentation and research upon which you can base your drug effectiveness onwards. It means that you're able to dominate the market and phase out the who can't necessarily afford those prime time slots. What does this mean? Number one, we proved to you already the drug price will become inaccessible. The average price is $500 in the US, $12 in Europe, exactly because a lot of the time the company used to market and sell fund pushers on the ground. Number two, you create a very high barrier of entry for big pharmaceutical companies, because only those with the money and the largest to buy all your advertisements enter, you face out 1 million enters, you allow the big companies to advertise. What do I mean? EpiPen is a very effective drug for curing asthma, right? But it was developed by NASA, moved on to a government company who don't have the money or money to do marketing. It was always overlooked until it was sold to a private company who price 1,000% and sell it to consumers directly in the US through advertising. In their drugs like EpiPen, to the extent that they belong to companies that afford market, is when that they will not be able to be accessible to consumers at all. But thirdly, even after all your shenanigans, there's no guarantee that the consumer under the side will get the best drug for their buck, right? Because like I told you earlier, now it becomes a better scare tactic. Who has the better CGI? Who has the most celebrity endorsement? We can even after checking out the prices, even after committing all this warfare, the consumer under the side are not guaranteed to get the best drugs. As opposed to a doctor's natural, it's better to get the best and most effective drug possible. And lastly, when there's a high barrier to entry, now big pharmaceutical companies will be less innovative and spend less on research. If all side government is against monopoly and against accessibility, you'll stay on our side.
sorry. Mr. Chair, when patients take prescription from the doctors, due to differences between the doctor and the patient, the differences in skill and the perceived professional status, the consumer has complete trust in doctors and whatever medicine they choose to give you, right? What they may not know is the doctors receive incentive to sell one kind of drug. Big farmers go to the doctors, give them gifts, money incentive to sell their drug in terms of like what's better for the patient, necessarily in terms of what better for the patient, right? So the consumer assumes doctor to be completely true and to completely assume that the doctor must give him a drug that is better for him. The patient has no negotiation in terms of what kind of medicine they want, and especially harmful in state with bad care and for patients, right? Some patients refuse to take prescriptive drugs just because of the cost of how expensive some drugs are. That's what the opposition team doesn't understand the problem in this debate, right? That there are doctors, a whole agency to prescribe drugs that are incentivized to them is extremely problematic, and the barrier information that is in front of the people who are actually in need of it, we think the bigger problem in this debate. And let's move on to the issues. Two main issues in the debate today. First of all, is the choice of the consumer legitimate? And second of all, what is beneficial to the consumers and how do we make medicine better, right? On the first issue, the choice of the consumer legitimate. First of all, look at the barrier of information that exists in the status quo already, right? Like regardless of the fact that whether the doctor, like whether the medicine is given to that person or not, whether it's cheap or not, we think there is an uninformed decision or uninformed consumer when that consumer is choosing to buy from that from getting prescribed from that, right? Given how doctors are given these incentives, we think it is unfair to push that cost directly onto the consumers. We think with informed consumers or like people who know of what cost, what drugs cost or what they actually cost, we think it's better information for them to access those drugs. But secondly, let's talk about advertisement, right? Because the opposition seems to have like big problems with how marketing is done and advertisement, right? But let's look at advertisement. First of all, we're not sure why it is ultimately sensationalist and bad, right? We do not think that medicine is something that you have to sell just like burgers or and other things, because medicine are like public health utility. There are different. But secondly, there be harsher checks on them with within the companies and the state itself, right? Because if they fuck up in that marketing strategy, it's a public health crisis. There are bigger things at stake. So we do think just because they have a ability to market to their customers, they will necessarily market it to a level that will go to like McDonald's or Burger King. We think that is we refuse to take. But we think even if it is flashy to a certain extent, we still think it is okay because the consumer has a choice, has at least the information on what kind of drugs exist in the status quo and what choices that he has. He does not have to depend completely on doctor's choice because he has that information on drugs are available in the status quo and proceed with that. But in comparison to the status quo, where drugs are only restricted to doctor's advice, we think the prices can be jacked up as much as possible because the consumer will be left off from that price tag of what it is, right? Because the doctors have that incentive to jack up the price. The corporations have incentive to jack up the price as much as they want. But on the second level, right? Yes, question.
So, bro, you still haven't told me why, even with access to the information, the guy can still figure out which is the best medicine that will not fuck up in the long run.
Mr. Chair, the motion clearly states that it is prescription drugs. The person cannot just go to a pharmacy and ask for drugs that cure HIV and so on. You need a doctor's prescription to do so. Therefore, even if
the patient can then go to the doctor, ask for what his prescription is, and if then the patient will have a negotiating power with the doctor on, like, there are a spectrum of medicine available for this disease. Why should I choose one that's expensive only to you? And we think that is beneficial to people who are personally vulnerable, people who afford medicine prices that are backed up by the corporations, right? The second level, beneficial to customers. First of all, we talk about, and this is what was exclusively coming from closing, was accessibility. We give a better access to a larger population on what drugs to take. It does not mean that people necessarily go to doctors and ask for an unnecessary drug that they do not want. Since it's prescriptive, we still think that the negotiating power to stabilize that negotiating power is more important, right? Because in this state it is not present. But second of all, we also told you how innovation is better on our side, because the competition is not which doctor to pursue, but to make the consumer more wanted more. How does this work, right? If marketing your products, first of all, let's to the fact that these are going to be big pharmas anyway, because small, like, I don't know, indie medicine shop, they're not going to make marketing videos to show who to produce to. But these manufacturing companies are huge already. We think they have more incentive to innovate because they can sell the people more. Like, they can assure that since you produce better drugs, you are innovating more, and that's how you sell more, right? And we think that is an okay thing to do. Mr. Chair, in all of this, we think the opposition completely misses how important it is for us to know the prices and not just rely on a source of information that you trust completely. We think that trust, the power dynamics between you and your doctor, give the doctor leverage to make you charge more, and we think that is harmful in the status quo. We're very proud to oppose.
I'd like to thank the government for that speech, and the opposition moves on to conclude the op case and indeed this debate.
I think there are two parts of debates that were happening. First is the whole doctor-patient, and the second is on pharmaceutical companies and drugs. I'll engage on and tell you why is it on both. That closing opposition has called to both these issues in this debate. The first, there's an issue on optional choices. So I point out that in status quo, even in any other treatment, if you go see a doctor, the doctor has to provide you options. What do I mean by this? If you have like a knee pain, he has to tell you things like you can either take drugs, you can go for surgery, you can go for all these other options that are available. And even within drugs, he has to give you all the types of options that are available. This is called the informed consent model that exists within the medical structure. The question that becomes, what's the difference? What's the difference between your choice and our choice? The difference is who gives this information first towards these patients. Because the moment that the information comes first from a billboard, where Celine Dion is sitting there and saying that if the next works for me, it can work for you too. It's different when it comes to Celine Dion selling, I don't know, Estee Lauder, for instance, right? Because the Estee Lauder doesn't necessarily affect your life, that you could die. But when it comes to something like medication, it could affect your life, right? And as much as causing government defense of, look, it's prescription drugs. Yeah, the patient, the moment they see Celine Dion saying this, goes to the doctor and says, I want this drug. If not, I'm going to go to another drug. Then your prescription drug doesn't work because the doctor wanted the autonomy to tell them, look, I don't think this is best. I know your past medical history. I know things you're allergic to, but it doesn't matter because the patient, you give it to me, either give me this or I'm going to find a different doctor. That is when we tell you the choice you talk about is not as good as to posit. The only thing they had is that people be informed. And this was based on the Prime Minister's second prong model, which is you can scrutinize the data. I already told you that this data is already made public. Say you're not going to scrutinize, it's already publicly available data. What makes you think people scrutinize the data you're talking about? It's worse under your side when you put this on cheap billboards and you sell it to them that this is something you need and people immediately jump on it. Think about it. This is like WebMD. You search for something, you think you're cancer, you're dying. Because you know why? MD is now telling you, you need to buy drug A. That is the only thing that will solve your cancer. This worst version of WebMD. I'm telling you why it is harmful to the patients to begin with. The only thing they had was that doctors can be there. Something you don't talk about. No, if you look through your notes, I've never dealt with this, right? But beyond this thing, let me give you a case example, right? If you think, okay, I'll do this a bit better. Please sit down. Pfizer in 2016 was involved in a huge corruption scandal. What was it? In Hong Kong and both US, they were giving doctors money to prescribe their drugs. These are medical practices that have already been taken care of in status quo. They can't simply say a doctor in Alabama would freely give out drugs because he's being paid, because that is an offense under law. And as much as we can up regulations, etc., they might say, oh, it's not necessary to achieve that whatsoever. But CG said they're okay with harsher restrictions towards the advertisement on billboards and etc. If you want better regulation can also work here. The exclusive benefit is you don't have this billboard that is selling off incomplete information towards the individual. That's the benefit you get. Because the comparative is, as opposed to advertisement to your doctors and your patients, and this is the comparative that we bring to you, please sit down. It's easier to manipulate a layperson as opposed to manipulating a medical practitioner who has influence and background on how chemicals within the work and why is it the most important, right? Considering that advertisements do have properties of this thing, affecting people by whatever it goes. Dangerous advertisement directly towards consumers, and consumers have this say as to what drug they definitely want and completely neglect the information of patients. Right? It is only this side that better deals with patients. I don't think them saying better options is enough to justify why the options cannot come to the doctor. Something we have already said, especially if it's better, and we rather err on the side of caution. It means your options will be harm you. Please sit down. Second debate on pharmaceutical companies. I think this debate happened more in closing up and the entirety of government bench. Right? So I think the three parts. The first is monopoly. What do you mean monopoly? I think opening government, I'll talk about this in the POI, they didn't really respond to this. Their version of monopoly is worse. Why? Companies like Pfizer, GSK, can have so much in terms of research. They just have to take more money and fund it towards things like marketing and etc. If their side is talking about niche companies, under our proposal, all they have to do is have enough fund to research a medication and sell drugs. But under their proposal, these small companies, for them to start up, they must have money to research on drugs and at the same time have more money to research on spend on marketing and etc. Right? And that's worse for the entry of new companies, because that's what we want to talk about. More competitive edge, closing government's attention, right? This is why Leroy's argument is important in terms of how do you have more companies entering the market. It is only your side that adds another barrier for companies to join, right? Monopoly on your side is going to be worse, because it's going to be as to Samsung and iPhone. Who is going to be the one that can put on the flagship billboard of New York's skyline, right? Please sit down. As opposed to them focusing so much on the efficiency of these products. Price, in terms of price, all they say is competitive pricing. Your side reduces the number of companies that can enter because they spend so much money on marketing. They never engage with it. Second, they talk about poor people. Poor people need it too. Yes, the moment you sell the drug A, something that everybody uses because it's important, even if it's so expensive, the person uses the drug. It's so expensive. Leaders talk about things like generic. These things will be completely worth. It's similar to a person that wants to get an iPhone as opposed to using his Nokia, because all his friends are using an iPhone. They're just bursting the situation in marketing, putting in healthcare, which is dangerous because this affects people's lives. It's not just like money, but people's lives. They never talked about, right? I'll take opening.
Individuals with a prescription can now choose to buy medicine from a vast and scrutinized market advertised to them, that being tied to only one option. Your doctors can be bought by lobbyists to do so. Why is no option?
Doctors may be bought over, but we have check and balances against it. The moment people think they want this thing per se, and the moment they force doctors to give it to them, that harms people's life. I don't think that's the comparative that you guys talked about, right? All the defense was doctors can be bought. People can be bought over flat billboards. That's right? Let's talk about things like innovation. Extension, that the moment you spend so much money on marketing, right? The moment you make all these flashy advertisements, CGI saying, oh, this is what's important, etc., you definitely lose money for innovation. It's as simple as saying iPhone 7 to iPhone 8 is just tilting the camera. And look, that's a new product. As simple as people spending is an opportunity cost when it comes to money that you have in terms of research and opposed to marketing, right? And that is something to talk about. Because when you talk about who gives best value for the money you give in terms of that comes in a platform when you don't have to spend money on marketing and only spend money on drugs. That is status quo. The best drugs in the market win. of showing most effectiveness. Yes, it's not best drug. It's the flashiest drug that's being sold. Who gets the best celebrity? That's the whole thing. What is even the niche market you target is smaller than the market that comes with Coke and iPhone and etc. A lot of people need this product. Not everyone needs a niche drug. So it makes it worse in terms of how much money that the prices will go up. Now, in this debate, we think it's important. We not only look at the perspective of this one patient as of now, but future patients in terms of the drug industry. And we think it's the opposition values that does that best.
And all speakers invite them to the floor and please temporarily exit. Maximum 3.
No.